Which are the oldest flags in the world? Some videos ago I mentioned the fact that Denmark has the oldest continuously used flag in the world, having adopted it as early as 1219, over 800 years ago. So I thought it would be interesting to delve deeper into this topic, understanding which are the oldest flags still in use today, and also which are the newest ones that have been recently changed. But on this video we'll focus on the oldest. If it is well, I can do one on the most recent flags, going through the 20 or 19 flags that are technically the oldest in the world, also adding a couple interesting honorable mentions and understanding when they were implemented, what they mean, and if their usage was ever interrupted, why, and when it was resumed. For the definition of oldest flags, continuous use will therefore not be a key criteria. A lot of countries had brief or long interruptions in their sovereignty, but the flags, some of them recently adopted, had already been created and even used by themselves earlier on, being recovered in modern times. So let's get into it and start with the oldest first. Japan is said to have used its current flag as early as the year 701 AD, which would make it the oldest in the world. However, Japan didn't use that same flag continuously nor officially throughout all its history, only adopting it officially more recently in 1870. Before that, they either didn't have a national flag, with each daimyo having its own banner. The Wikipedia page for Japanese flags actually has old depictions of all these banners, and they're super fascinating to look at, and the simple circle on a solid field was pretty present throughout, even the red circle on white in the banner of the Sakai Yatsugu and the Sakikibara Matonao banners, as well as in this military flag of court warriors from the 1200s, or this merchant flag of the Ryukyu Kingdom in 1429. The second oldest flag to be created that is in use in modern times is that of Georgia, although apparently this is somewhat disputed. But it is said that Georgia first used their current flag in the year 1008 AD, which would make it older than that of Denmark as well. Through Ottoman and then Russian occupation, the modern country only adopted the current flag in 2004, so there was no continuous use either. The third oldest flag, and the oldest flag that has remained unchanged for the longest time, is Denmark's. Denmark's flag was, according to legend, adopted in the year 1219. At the time, Valdemar II was king of Denmark, and it is said that during the Battle of Lindenis, a part of the Northern Crusades and taking place in what is today Tallinn in Estonia, the Danish flag would have descended from the skies. This painting depicts that supposed moment. Obviously, a flag didn't descend from the skies. At most, perhaps the clouds were shaped into a cross shape, then inspiring the flag. Throughout all its history, Denmark has kept this flag, not only never changing it, but also serving as an inspiration for all the other Nordic cross flags. Next are two red and white horizontally striped flags, Austria and Latvia. Austria's flag traces back its shape and colors to the coat of arms of the medieval Babenberg dynasty, a silver band on a red field. The triband is first documented in a seal on a deed issued in the year 1230. In this painting from the 1246 Battle of Leitha River, we can see them in the coat of arms. After this first dynasty became extinct, the colors were adopted by its successor, King Ottokar II of Bohemia. Upon the 1278 Battle of Markfeld, the colors were assumed by the victorious House of Habsburg and gradually became the coat of arms of the dynasty's hereditary lands within the Habsburg monarchy, which ruled Austria. It was recovered as the flag for modern Austria after the fall of the Habsburg Empire. Latvia's flag is first mentioned in the medieval rhymed Chronicle of Livonia, which covers the period from 1180 to 1343. The chronicle tells of a battle that took place around 1279, in which ancient Latgalian tribes from Cesis, a city in the northern part of modern-day Latvia, went to war bearing a red flag with a white stripe. The origin of it is somewhat unknown, and only the legend story prevails. According to it, a wounded chief of the Latgalians, the local tribe, was wrapped in a white sheet. The part of the sheet on which he was lying remained white, but the two edges were stained in his blood. During the next battle, that sheet was used as a flag, leading them to victory, and ever since then, the Latgalian tribes would have used these colors. Next is that of the Netherlands. Oddly enough, this flag also served as the origin point for another group of flags, red, white, and blue tricolors, although sometimes indirectly through the French one. The current flag was first adopted in 1662, although arguably 1572, but the red was orange back then. In 1568, provinces of the Low Countries rose in revolt against King Philip II of Spain, who controlled them. These revolts were led by Prince William of Orange. However, the orange in his name has no connection to the color, and that's apparently not why they chose it. The origin of the colors was the uniform of William, and in this painting of the siege of Leiden from 1574, we can see the rebels already carrying it. Red gradually replaced orange as a sign of political change and growing disassociation of the Republic from the royal house of Orange. Albania is next, dating to 1444, a year before historical leader Skanderberg and a few hundred Albanians defected from the Turkish army, rebelling against them and defeating them consistently in battle. Being, I believe, Christian and having the Ottomans as their main foe, he adopted the similar Byzantine imperial flag with the double-headed eagle and the red background. The eagle was used for heraldic purposes in the Middle Ages by a number of noble families in Albania and eventually became the symbol of all Albanians. And then Switzerland. Their use of the white cross on a red field can be dated back to at least the year 1470, as we can see in numerous paintings from around those times. The origin of it goes back to the Battle of Laupen in the canton of Bern in 1339. To set themselves apart from others in battle, the Swiss soldiers sewed a white cross onto their chain mail. Later, the cross began appearing in their weapons and banners as well, namely in that of some of the Swiss cantons prior to unification, such as Schwyz itself. Though in the Helvetic Republic, Napoleon Bonaparte decreed that Switzerland should fly a tricolor flag in green, red, and yellow, which by the way looked absolutely awful. This gave Switzerland its first national flag, immediately being abandoned after its return to independence, and returning to the white cross on a red field, which looks so much better. A couple hundred years after Denmark, but being influenced by it, was Sweden. According to early modern legend, King Erik IX saw a golden cross in the sky as he landed in Finland during the First Swedish Crusade in 1157. Seeing this as a sign from God, he adopted the golden cross against a blue background as his banner, a pretty similar story to that of Denmark, from which they likely modeled their flag. This legendary story would place Sweden conveniently higher up in the list of older flags. However, the official date is said to actually be 1562, being adopted by King Gustav I, choosing the colors as the differentiating element and taking them from the coat of arms of the king, a blue shield with 3 golden crowns. Also being influenced by an even older one is Russia. During Peter the Great's reign, the Tsar wanted to turn Russia into a great European power, namely at sea. He therefore modeled many of his innovations in the country after other European nations, especially after his tour throughout Europe, where he spent a great deal of time in both Germany and the Netherlands. In 1693, Peter ordered a Dutch-built frigate from Amsterdam, and when it arrived, the Dutch red, white, and blue banner flew from its stern, so Peter would have decided to model Russia's naval flag after that banner by assigning meaning and reordering the colors, sometimes adding the double-headed eagle on top of it. The tricolor apparently was changed to black, gold, and white for some time, then reverting to the modern version, not to mention the interregnum of the flag usage due to the Soviet Union. Moving on to Nepal, their flag was adopted in 1743. Historically, triangular-shaped flags in South Asia were very common, but Nepal is the only one that remains as such today. The transition to rectangular flags has to do with their use at sea. Considering Nepal is a landlocked nation, this may be why they never changed it. A 1928 French book about Nepal shows a double pennant flag with a green border rather than the blue one. The first ruler of modern Nepal, Prithvi Narayan Shah, put this flag into use, using the sun and moon to represent different Nepalese dynasties. And to be fair, the design was also updated in 1962, removing the faces. With the potential switch from green to blue and this removal of the faces, it is perhaps incorrect to consider it the third oldest, but they were minor design changes. In 2008, during the drafting of the new constitution, various political parties demanded changes to the flag's design since it symbolized Hinduism and the monarchy, but this proposal was rejected. Liechtenstein is next, 2 horizontal tribands, one blue and one red, charged with a gold crown and the canton. It's been in use since 1764, chosen by Prince Joseph Wenzel I, somewhat arbitrarily I think, since the colors of his house were actually yellow and red. The only change was made with the addition of the crown in 1937, after the country found out at the Summer Olympics that their flag was identical to the civil flag of Haiti. Haiti's flag is also quite old itself, being created in 1806, created when Haiti revolted against France. It is said that they used a French tricolor, ripped out the white center stripe, and made it horizontal instead. And here we reach an interesting point. Due to the European colonization of the world from the 16th to 20th century, almost all American, African, and Asian nations had their sovereignty interrupted through European conquest. Because of this, European countries became the oldest in the world from a perspective of continuous sovereignty. However, they later saw significant changes in regime, for instance with the collapse of monarchies and the emergence of republics, and those brought with them flag changes. Portugal is a great example of a country that is very old, officially established in 1143, but whose modern flag dates only to 1910, when the monarchy fell to a republican revolution. But despite their recent establishment date as countries, many of the world's oldest flags from a perspective of continuous use are in America, namely that of the US itself. Now, the United States flag has changed pretty much every time a state was added to the Union. The current version is the 27th, and so the most recent version is from 1960 when Alaska and Hawaii were added. However, the original flag dates back to 1775, the Grand Union flag, also known as the Continental Colors. 13 alternating red and white stripes, representative of the 13 colonies. The upper inner corner, or canton, initially featured the flag of the United Kingdom, or Great Britain at the time, of which the colonies were subjects, closely resembling the flag of the British East Indian Company. Soon though, since they were precisely rebelling against the British, the Union Jack was removed and replaced by a blue field with white stars instead. Spain is next. Similarly to many, as well as the one we'll see after this, Spain's flag comes from its naval ensign, namely that of 1785, chosen by King Charles III of Spain among 12 different proposals, designated by Antonio Valdez y Bazan, a navy officer. The colors of the chosen one were, I believe, mostly modeled off the colors of the Kingdom of Castile and the Kingdom of Navarre. There were other proposals in other colors, but they looked pretty strange. And then we have Turkey, which kept the flag of the Ottoman Empire, implemented as early as 1793 by their navy, although by 1788 a red flag with a white crescent and 3 golden stars had been reported during the war with Austria. The red seems to come from earlier Ottoman standards, while the white crescent and star represent their religion of Islam. 2 similar and connected flags are next, France and Italy. The usage of red, white, and blue was a constant throughout France's medieval flags. Their first banner, the Oriflamme, was red, and its royal flags, which had their symbol, the fleur-de-lis, on them were either blue or white. The current vertical tricolor was adopted after the French Revolution in 1789, and many say they were inspired by the flag of the Dutch Republic, considering they followed republican ideals themselves. Early in the French Revolution, the Paris militia, which played a prominent role in the storming of the Bastille, wore a cockade of blue and red, the city's traditional colors. This is supposed to have influenced the choice as well. Italy's flag followed the example of the French one. In fact, it seems to be directly connected to France because the first Italian state to adopt it was a temporary one in 1796, the Cispadan Republic, a Napoleonic puppet in the north of Italy. One of Napoleon's key moments in the conquest of northern Italy was his entry into Milan, and so some say the red-white colors come from the flag of the city, while the green would have been the color of the Milanese Guard forces. The Cisalpine Republic was later destroyed by 1802, and Italy remained separated for some decades still, with the tricolor being set aside. However, in 1848, permanent unification was achieved and this flag was recovered. One of the world's oldest countries also reaches the top 20 of oldest flags, San Marino. The oldest standard of the Republic dates back from 1465, when it was commissioned from a manufacturer in Florence, composed of a tricolor of gold, white, and azure. In 1797, most likely influenced by the wave of reforms in France, they commissioned a new white and blue cockade, turning it into a flag. And finally, the UK. The flag of the United Kingdom is also interesting because it never drastically changes its design. In the 16th century, Scotland had its current flag, as did England. When they became united, they were simply merged, used first in 1606 at sea, but only adopted in 1707 at land. The flag consists of the Red Cross of St. George, patron saint of England, superimposed on the saltire of St. Andrew, patron saint of Scotland. Later on, in 1801, when Great Britain became the United Kingdom, they added the St. Patrick's Cross to represent Ireland. So essentially the crosses of 3 different saints, one for each country a part of the UK. Wales sadly is left out. The UK is the only one of these old flags that dates the first use of said flag to the 19th century onwards. All others were first put into use before the year 1800. All other countries in the world first adopted their current flag after that. And throughout the 20th century, with many countries gaining or regaining their independence from Europe, a lot of brand new flags were put into use. The 10 most recently created or adopted flags in the world date from 1996 onwards, but again, that's a topic for another video if you are interested. So, those are the oldest flags in the world, not the oldest in continuous use, that's another story, but the ones that were created the earliest in history that are now used in modern times by countries, even if that usage was interrupted. We also didn't take into account the continuous usage of symbols. Again, Portugal is an example of that. The field and colors of the flag changed, but the elements, in this case the coat of arms, mostly remained the same. What do you think of this? And which of these old flags is your favorite? Should any of them be changed? And did I make any mistakes on the list? Let me know in the comments. Thanks so much for watching this video. Subscribe if you want, and I will see you next time for more general knowledge.